it just got to be too much. And then when I decided to homeschool my kids, I had to choose, and they came first. I just knew it wasn't right to keep going at that rate. The goal is to just keep slowing down and give more to my kids. I'm at home with them, and I love it. I just wouldn't trade that for anything. I'm so glad that I ended up deciding to stay home and kind of let go, because I can always turn back. There is always time, but right now it feels like it's slipping away. Like my time with my kids, you know.
Welcome to the Paintbrush Prairie podcast. I'm Kinsey Ashcraft, a boutique owner, firefighter wife, and mama of 2 cowgirls, homesteading on a cattle ranch in Oklahoma.
And I'm Talia, a Western artist and illustrator, mama of 2, and wife of a mountain man, raising babies in the mountains of Utah.
Together, we share a passion for the Western lifestyle, homemaking, and Indian paintbrush flowers.
We're here to inspire and encourage you as we each create a simple but beautiful life on the prairie. Welcome to another episode of the Paintbrush Prairie podcast. Today we have Mallory Mundt of the blog Hayseed Home and Harvest on the show with us. Mallory is a wife, mother, and small business owner living on a homestead in rural Minnesota. She owns the Bluebell Mercantile & Co., where she shares her love of antiques and vintage finds. Mallory, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
We're glad to have you.
I'm shocked you guys want me here. So, thank you for having me.
We're so glad you're here, and I just know our listeners are going to love you. If they don't already follow you, they will for sure after this.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're definitely one of the OG people I followed, I feel like, on Instagram. So I've been obsessed with your style and everything that you put out there. It's beautiful.
I've been following both of you for as long as I can remember. So this is fun. I wish we were meeting in person, but
that would be like the best.
I know. I feel like I know you because I have been listening to the podcast now for a couple weeks, and my kids love it too. So my daughters are always saying, wait, that's not where we left off. Go back. And yeah, so I feel like I know you two already. So
it's cool.
Well, that's awesome. I'm glad your girls like it. Go ahead and tell us your story. Give us some information about you, where you grew up, your upbringing, and tell us about your family.
Okay. Well, I grew up in Stillwater, Minnesota, which is like a antique capital of the country. I mean, it's known for the antiques. But I grew up on a horse farm. And my stepdad was a horse vet, and also into rodeo. And I was just really into, if I wasn't out playing with my horses, I was in the house painting, drawing, sculpting. I mean, I've just been kind of a creative mess my whole life, kind of mixed with the outdoors. And yeah, so I've lived in Stillwater my whole life. And then once Nick and I met, we bought a farmhouse just about 20 minutes up the river. And that's what brought me here. I mean, I guess a lot of what I do is kind of based in my house and my decorating and my farm, my kids, my animals. So, yeah.
So you currently live on a beautiful homestead, and your home is gorgeous. I know that you've also done work to it also. Didn't you do like a remodel?
We've done
add-on.
Yeah, we've done 2 phases of renovation. So when we bought the place, it was a tear down. But it was so old, we wanted to give it new life. we had been urged a couple of times by different construction. Well, some of the help we had on that first renovation, they said, you'd be better off just tearing it down. So what we did is we spent about, I don't know, a year getting it livable. We moved in, and then we weren't really sure what we wanted to do at that point, if we wanted to stay and add on or just continue that footprint and then sell and move on to another property. And then we just loved this area so much that we decided to add on. And then we went into another phase and completely swallowed this house with an addition. So we went from like 2,500 square feet, the original footprint. I think we added 4,000.
Oh,
Not
wow.
all of it's finished. Not all of it's finished. But, and then the goal was to keep that old, it was built in the 1870s. So I wanted to keep that old feel throughout. And, we did our best with new construction, but I think it is kind of, that we were successful in that being our goal. And, it took about a year to do that second remodel. So it's been a long road to get to this beautiful old farmhouse, but
Mhm.
yeah, it was worth it. It was worth it.
Yeah. It's so pretty. We'll have to post some pictures of it. But
Seriously,
kind of in that.
Sorry, I was just
Sorry,
going
go
to
ahead.
say, for you guys listening, you need to stop what you're doing and you need to go over to Instagram and find Mallory's Instagram. We'll put it in the notes, the show notes, and link it. But go over there and look at it. Like, her whole feed on Instagram is her beautiful home, and it is seriously the most beautiful farmhouse I've ever seen. The way she decorates it, the way that they have put it all together is just like truly, like, this sounds funny, but it's like breathtaking.
Oh, thank you.
It's so pretty.
But calming at the same time. Like it's so cozy, and that's what I love about it. It
And
just
it's like,
feels like you're walking into grandma's house, but it's not like grandma. You know what I mean? Like
That's my favorite compliment.
well,
I get
it
that a
just like
lot.
it's like I would get there and not want to leave. So I completely understand you've mentioned like a homebody and you are a homemaker and just wanting to be at home. Like, of course you do. It feels good. It's gorgeous. And I love what y'all have done. So a little bit more on that question though. So tell us how you developed this vintage style. Like, was that always something that you've been drawn to? Have you always kind of had that style about yourself, or is that something that just came into motherhood?
Actually, I've always loved this style. What happened? Okay, my mom broke her back like 26 years ago on a horse. It was a horse accident, and my grandma came to stay. And while she was staying with us, I think my mom was in a hospital bed for it was at least 3 months in our house. But my grandma stayed, and she brought an entire stack of country living magazines. And we would sit in her camper at night. And this was like the best summer of my life. We would sit in her camper at night, and she'd pour me a cup of coffee, which was like all amaretto creamer. And we would look through those country living magazines. And that was, I feel like that's really what started everything for me. I loved just planning my home. In my head, I had everything planned. And I would say a lot of what I was looking at then is what I'm still drawn to now.
Yeah.
And it's all timeless. I've always loved antiques. I loved antiques. I didn't like antique shopping. because we live in such a huge antique river town. My other grandma on my stepdad's side, she would come up and look for ironstone in our town. And I could not stand going through those antique shops. It was like, the smell, it just grossed me out. And then I always said, I'll never do that as an adult. And now you can't get me out of an antique shop. If I see one, I'm stopping, I'm checking. And I'm actually looking for ironstone too, just like my grandma. So I would say she was kind of the one that got me hooked. And that was it. And I collect all my country living magazines, and I have stacks and stacks. And every season I pull them out still. So that's definitely what influenced my style. And it hasn't changed. So
that's so awesome.
Yeah.
Talia and I've talked in a previous episode before that, because we're both magazine girls too. And it's like, that was our Pinterest. Because
Yeah.
I remember cutting out, like, having my house pretty much pre-picked out, and I would cut them out and put them on paper and then put them in a binder and like save all of these ideas and not vision boards, but you know what I mean? Like just ideas and things that I loved. And it's like magazines were the OG Pinterest. And I enjoy going to the store and getting a magazine, taking it home and reading it. Like, I just love that. It's like nostalgic almost now, because a lot of people don't do that anymore.
Yep, that I still turn to that. I find I get a lot of inspiration from like magazines, but also books, like children's books.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I really like to look. Maybe that was like part of my, my drawing side, my art side. I was really into looking at illustrations, and I love children's books. But I'm always studying the houses in those books. And then I grew up with, in a very horse our family was all horses were our lives, and old Westerns. And that is what I looked for. I always watch the houses in old Westerns, and I still feel inspiration from just watching an old Western. I look for all the little oil lamps and what's on the windows, and how they styled shelves for scenes. And it's weird, but I would rather watch an old movie than go to Pinterest. Sure. I love Pinterest too, but it's just changing. It's harder to find, that old style.
Plus, I feel like everything on Pinterest is very contrived. Like, it's all like, it's not as like organically collected. It's definitely gotten a lot better in the last couple of years. I feel like because that style is like more popular, like the collected look seems to be more popular, but for a while there was just Hobby Lobby specials. All over.
Well, and they're just always selling something. There's always ads, and it's easy to flip over an ad in a magazine. And I like that. And I like to have my hands on something. Yeah. I'm not really into technology, into screens. Like, I would rather get my inspiration from, a book or a magazine.
Yeah. I think it's so interesting that you have pointed that out, because like while you were talking about it, I was thinking about it. I'm like, that's actually kind of like how I gained a lot of the style that I like, because at my core, I am like a log cabin, like Western, like lodge house. That's like what I want, and that's what I've always wanted, like my whole life. But like I was drawn to those magazines, and those are the kinds of things I looked at. Like, there's always like those, like where they have like the big Western lodges, and it's like Montana Realty or whatever. Or it's like I had like the big ranches, like coffee table book, and it's like all of these Western ranches and just like all of the really cool log homes. So kind of the same thing, but just a little bit different style. It's interesting.
Oh, I definitely, I have more than one style. I'm living one style,
right.
but I also have a side. I've always wanted a log home too.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't be too far off of what I have. You know, I would still probably bring in my doilies and my lace. And
well, that's the coolest thing about it though, because like, you know, talking about your old Westerns, like the old Westerns, they had that like Victorian lodge style. So it was like a log cabin, but it was, you know, in the 1800s. So they had like all of these Victorian elements within it. So it's kind of cool because you can kind of like mix and match those two styles.
oh, I love that.
Yeah, it was rustic and feminine at the same time. Because like, my style is like, if a log cabin and a farmhouse could have a baby, that's what I want. Like,
Yeah.
I want to be like right in the middle of that.
That's perfect. Our house is on the market, so we have looked at a couple of log homes. I mean, that's one thing. Like it's definitely a contrast from what I have now, but I can see all my stuff also in like a darker, cozier log house too. But that, I don't know. I think that's what I liked about the Westerns. It's got that rustic feel, but there's always like delicate, you know, like little pieces. And that's what I look for. I really do like that contrast.
Yeah. Because a homemaker lived there.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I always think, for some reason, I have in my mind, like on the Cowboys, the little log cabin that John Wayne's character lives in, you know, because he's got like, it's just him and his wife. So she's got like her little touches, but it's like this like really cool log cabin. So,
well, we always watch Lonesome Dove. I mean, that's like tradition to watch Lonesome Dove. We were watching it every year, a couple times a year. And as soon as they'd go into Lori Darlin's room, it was like, hit pause. I gotta look. I gotta study. And that, I mean, that inspires me too. Still, I mean, I kind of like styled my bathroom around her. And it doesn't have like the rustic twist I'd like it to have. You know, that bathroom's all white, but definitely inspired by Lori Darlin. And then I just think, what could I do with a log home? Or even just more darker wood on the walls, you know?
Right. Yeah. It's not even necessarily that it has to be like an actual like log home, but just like that natural wood, like a lot of natural wood. Like I keep seeing these old homes on Instagram where people are showing the reel of them, how their house, like this certain room used to have all this beautiful natural wood, and they're like, we painted it, and then they like paint it, and I like want to cry every time. I'm like, why would you do that?
Oh, you would cry. You would cry if you would have seen our great room before it was painted. It was all pine. And I think Nick really wanted us to keep it pine, but he has so much taxidermy that I said, no, I need something to look feminine in this room. It has to be feminine. It can't be just a zebra to full body mount brown bears. And I don't even know how many deer. I don't even know how many deer are in that room, but it started off as a pine room, and I could tell it was painful for Nick when I said, no, paint it white. But at least his taxidermy stands out, and there's that contrast I love.
Right. And I think you've done a great job with that, because it flows with the rest of your house, right? And it's like you kind of like embrace this certain style for the house that you have created, right? But it totally works. Like, that's one thing I've always loved, is like how you incorporate his taxidermy, because that's the other thing that breaks my heart, is because I am a hunter's wife, right? Like, that's what my husband lives for. And I love to hunt too. And so it's like, when we kill an animal, that's like our pride and joy, like on the wall. And it makes me so sad when wives are like, yeah, are you going to put it in the basement? Because I don't want to see it on my wall, you know?
I have my moments, but it's too late. I have my moments. Yeah, I get a lot of women in here that say, I can't believe you let him do that. But it is in one room. I mean, I guess there's a couple of rooms that there's a piece here and there, but I do like some.
Right.
It's our great room is pretty wild looking. I don't share most of it.
Yeah.
Because I'm just not ready for what I'm going to hear online. So, but I also wanted to bring in a lot of wood pieces. And I knew if we had wood walls, taxidermy everywhere, we would lose those wood pieces. Like I have a really cool old piano that I thought, well, that looks like something I would have seen on Lonesome Dove. So bought that. And then he put his buffalo head over that. All of that would have been, all these, like our mantle is a huge, huge piece of, it's like a barn beam, but it's pretty big. We've had men standing on it. You could probably put 10 guys across the mantle, and that would have been lost in a wood pine room, and everyone has wood trophy rooms. So
right.
I said, I'm going to do it different. I'm going to do a white trophy room. And
you've done it well.
I love it. Sometimes, I have my issues with how much taxidermy's in there, but that's his job. He loves,
right.
He loves his taxidermy too. He just loves animals. And so I let him, that's his part of the house. Yeah. I have the kitchen. So.
Well, I think that I've always felt like it's important to let your husband, I don't even like saying that, because you don't let your husband do anything. Your husband is an equal part of your relationship. So, not that you have to, make everything a joint decision within the house, because at first that was like, when I first got married, that's how I thought. And I was like, I'm not getting anywhere, decorating, because I was always asking what he thought. And then eventually I was like, okay, there are certain areas that he has that are his zones, and let him do what he wants to a degree with those zones. But other than that, he pretty much doesn't care.
Yeah.
So
I'm definitely, I call the shots on all of the house, everything. He's tried to sneak in a few things, and I notice immediately, did you just hang that on the wall? Mm-mm. But the taxidermy, even with that, I still place it. I still have the look I'm going for. And, that's just not something he cares about. He loves his taxidermy and he just wants it up. And so I'm lucky in that way. If we were splitting decisions on how this place was decorated, it would never, we're so opposite. We're so opposite. I can almost guarantee if there's, two things on the shelf at the store and I don't like one, that's the one he's going to pick. So this works. We kind of made an agreement. I said, way back when the original farmhouse, when we first moved in, I said, I'm going to have a doily out for every deer head. And I have doilies everywhere. So I've balanced it with feminine, I wanted to keep home feeling feminine. It's a good mix. So.
Well, I've definitely taken a few decorating tricks from you, that's for sure. And doilies is one of them.
Oh, good.
Now, every time I go to the antique store, I'm always looking, because they always have the little bargain bin full of all the doilies, and they're $1. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to take that one,
I know, and it's so sad because you think about all the work that was put into each one.
Right.
I will always be at that bargain bin.
Oh,
I
yeah.
love doilies. Yeah.
And they're not like, I don't know. When I was a kid, I think I used to think they were kind of like super grandma, like, you know. But now I think they just add that little feminine touch to everything. Like you can have
Yeah.
all wood and like, you know, more like masculine decor, and then you throw a doily on and it just like brings it all together for some reason.
It's that contrast.
Yeah.
The rustic and the feminine. I really love it too. I think I've always maybe just strived to be like a grandma because I've always loved them. Anything
I
my
love
grandma
it.
did, I just thought, oh, she is so cool.
Same. Yeah, I
And
grew up around my grandparents, but like was with them a lot. And my great grandparents, like I was blessed to be able to have uh my great grandmothers in my 20s. And so they, they lived through the Depression and taught me how to can and just a lot of the old fashioned skills and ways. And I just always thought, like, man, they are the coolest people. Like, they can do anything, they can do everything. And I always wanted to be like that. So whenever, whenever I get called a grandma, I'm like, thank you.
yeah.
That's exactly what I want to be.
It's a compliment.
Yeah.
Well, I've always taken it as a compliment. I get a lot of people in here that say, it's like stepping back into another time or my grandma's house. I get that a lot, even at the shop.
Mm-hmm.
People would come into the Bluebell and say, wow, this reminds me of my grandma's house. And I love it. That's what I was going for. So,
well, and when they're saying that, they're recalling a happy memory. So that's a huge compliment.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, kind of since you mentioned that, we're just going to go to the next question. So, tell us about your shop, the Bluebell Mercantile, and kind of like what inspired you to start the shop, how you got it going, and how it's evolved over the years and where you're at with it now.
Well, I actually fell in love with the building first. My parents tried to buy it when I was young. My mom and stepdad, they wanted to run their vet practice out of it. And it's an old schoolhouse. It is right outside of one of our state parks. And it's such a beautiful area. And I had heard a rumor that the woman living in it, there was a person living there, she wanted out. And so I just mentioned it to Nick, and he was very supportive of, I've kind of always wanted to have a retail shop, like a little general store, like a little country store. And I'd mentioned to Nick, this woman might want out of this building. And he said, let's just talk to her. And he made her an offer. I believe he called her and over the phone just made an offer, and she came back and she took the offer. We couldn't even believe it because there's an old general store just a couple miles south of our building, and that went for $1 million. I mean, the real estate around here is so high, and we were nowhere. I mean, we were so low. And it just felt like it was meant to be. When she came back and said, "It's yours." So that's when I started planning. I didn't really have a plan for the retail shop. I'm very true to my style. I know it wouldn't be hard for me to go into a market and just buy. It's going to be like narrowing it down and fitting it into that tiny little schoolhouse. But so I just wanted it to feel like you were stepping back in time. I wanted it to just feel just like a old country store on an old movie. And I went in with, I think we were open 7 days a week for a long time. I had employees, and it was very cute. We did pretty well, and it just got to be a lot managing everything. And I had Della shortly after. So Della kind of changed the plan a little bit. I cut back on my hours. And I guess having employees really, like, they became some of my best friends, but in a business sense, it was kind of hard. Retail is just hard right now. It was just hard to kind of manage it all. And so then it went back down to just me working. And I just felt like it was taken away from my kids so much that then I went to occasional sales, and now I'm just temporarily closed, and I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do next, because I'm about to do something with it. And it's either going to be that I get back into the Bluebell as like a little general store again, or more of a learning space. And then I'd still have some retail in there. But it's such a cute little building. I mean, I get people that stop just to see the inside, and they want to know, is this a church or was it a school? And it was a school from like I think it was the 1860s through 1940 something. So I get a lot of cool history. Like, people come in with stories. They know someone that went to school there. They know someone who taught there. And then we have a Native American burial mound right in our parking lot, like right off of our parking lot. And so I get a lot of people that stop and have a story about that. So it's a really pretty historic building. And I know I need to do something. I need to bring it back to life. But it just got to be too much. And then when I decided to homeschool my kids, I had to choose, and they came first. So it's still online. And I'm working towards getting something going in the building again. Now that Della's a little older, I think it could be fun to get back into it. I do miss a lot of it. I miss parts, not really the retail businessy side, but I loved staging it. I love buying for it. I mean, but retail is an expensive hobby if you make it a hobby. So yeah.
Well, I feel like you were saying, you were so creative when you were growing up and loved to do art and all that. I think that's kind of like I can relate, because I love the idea of like having a storefront and like having a retail shop, and like I just have this idea of how I would decorate it and do all this stuff, and I'm like, but I don't want to be in there. Like, I don't want to be like
that's the
running
problem.
it. Like, I'll just decorate it and I'll like be in the back while someone else does all the other stuff.
And I tried that. I tried to, you have employees, and then I'd want to spend time with my employees because they were my friends. They weren't really employees. I felt like they were just, my friends were down at the store. I had to go sit with them. And then I'd get people that would come up to visit and want to know where I was. So then I would drop everything at home and drive down to the store. And yeah, it was very demanding of creative energy and just time. And so sometimes I just get home and I felt so spent. Like I just had nothing left. And I just wanted to stare at like a blank wall for a little while and decompress. And I just knew it wasn't right to keep going at that rate. So yeah, I'm still trying to recreate parts of it. I don't really know exactly what that's going to look like, but I feel like my time with that building is coming back. I'm going to figure something out, but I'm definitely, I won't be sitting there every day. That's especially now. I mean, we're up against the internet, so
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's good to hear. And I mean, we've heard, obviously, like Kenzie's talked about how she's, she closed her storefront and has taken her stuff just online to kind of cut back a little bit. And I think that's one of the hardest things, like being a business owner who's like got a lot of dreams and is like super motivated. It's hard to come to terms with the fact that you need to slow down.
Mhm.
yeah.
Like, it's been the hardest thing for
Well,
me.
And at that pace, I mean, the retail pace is so, you're always trying to be like a season or two ahead, and there was just no slowing down. You couldn't.
Mm-mm.
So that feel I was going for, like the stepping back in time, just a slow country store, I thought it'd be maybe like sweeping the floor. And no, it wasn't like that. It was wild.
Yeah.
And I found myself entertaining, I didn't have a lot of, I had great customers. I really did love my customers. And then it turned into kind of a social hour, a little too much. And I just knew I need to be at home talking to my kids. I don't need to be down here just talking to anyone that wants to come in and spill their day. So I'm not sure what the future of the building is going to look like as far as like the business goes, but like I had mentioned to you guys that it was a one-room schoolhouse, and part of me wants to convert it back to a schoolhouse. So I thought it'd be fun to have workshops, and that's something I had talked about before when I was open, is I'd like to do workshops and be able to host classes, and I could still have a little retail section. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking into that. And kind of talking to some homeschool moms around here and seeing what the interest would be. But it would just be fun to keep that going for that building, or bring that back to that building. So, yeah, I don't really have a lot of answers about the Bluebell, but I still walk in there and I love it. I love all the things in there. I love that old cash register. And as soon as I walk in there, I think, okay, yep, I got to get right back into this. This is what I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just that creative side.
Yeah.
It's just impulsive. It's like, I have a vision for it. I just want to do the creative part, and then like slip out.
Yep.
Yeah. You're describing that perfectly. Like, it's so hard to really convey those thoughts and feelings for people who don't do that, because I think that was the hardest part for me to let go. When I let go was letting go of the creative part. And then also just like when you are in a place that is rich in tradition, because my old shop on our main street was over 100 years old. And there were so many, we're a very cowboy town. So like we used to have dirt roads, and people would tie their horses up and go in, and I had a cotton merchant above my shop, and it was just lots of different things. And online came later in my business. I started as just a general store and a boutique, and I so badly wanted to like keep those old traditions alive, bring back that old country store. And it's hard today. It's almost impossible in today's retail world. Yeah. So I
It's
think,
impossible.
yeah, I think that you described that so perfectly, especially when you mentioned, I just thought I would be like sweeping the floors and then helping someone pack up their items. And, just that's exactly what I wanted in my head. But that is completely opposite of what is required. And gosh, it's just madness. It's just kind of like the entertaining because you have to serve your customers and then all of the work that you were supposed to do and get done during the day didn't get done, but it has to come at night when everyone is home or asleep and you miss out on so much family time and the things that are truly important. You have to prioritize, and like I mentioned before we started, that was very hard. So I think hearing that come from you too is such an encouragement for me because it's been hard to relate to anyone who hasn't laid something like that down that you poured your heart and soul into. And as a creative, it's very difficult to see it not be what you wanted it to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's been hard to even say it out loud that I'd consider not bringing it back to exactly what it was, just because that was a vision and it's something I created in my mind and
Mm-hmm.
I kind of committed to, and it's hard to not see it as a failure when really I don't think it is. It's just my priorities
Yeah.
shifted,
Yeah.
and I realized working constantly and just trying to keep up. I mean, when you switch even displays and you're creative, you have to take down I would take down the entire store, and it would
Me
be
too.
like I'm working till 3 a.m, trying to get it ready for the next day. And then I don't even see my kids. And
Yeah.
uh, that's
It's,
just not how I pictured it. And
yeah. Well, and the sacrifice. It's a lot of sacrifice on both ends.
yeah. Well, and I share a parking lot with another business, and she's got a garden store, and she's been there for a long time. And she warned me, she said, retail is a labor of love. And I used to look at how much, I mean, her store is pretty big. And I used to look at how much she would sell. I mean, her parking lot is always full. And for her to tell me that there's not a lot of money in retail, I looked at my little tiny schoolhouse, and it's so cute in there. And if I were a customer, I'd buy everything in there. But I just knew, like, this is just not set up to be successful. Like, there's so much more that goes into retail these days, and you have to be
Yeah.
online. And that's just not what the vision was.
Yeah. Well, and online's hard. Online is not easy. Like I know
No.
there are some that just take off with it and they are blessed and that is great.
Mhm.
In my experience, it is so much more difficult than people realize. It is so tough.
Yeah, and my brain doesn't work like that. I don't
Mm-mm.
do the businessy. I can do, like, I can talk to the customers. I can create an atmosphere. I put everything into my playlist. I mean, it was all old country, and
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
the way I lit the place, and I mean that was where my heart and soul went into it. And then
Mm-hmm.
anything business related, no. I just I couldn't juggle all of it and then come home and give my kids what they deserved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
I think for sure. Yeah, you described that perfectly too. I think my downfall was I wasn't great at business. I was great at the branding, and then I had obviously Talia in my back pocket making all the things beautiful. And I was the same way with the music I played or the how it smelled or the paper bags. Like I wanted paper bags with some
mhm.
beautiful printed tissue, just the detail that went into it. And those are the things that I loved and enjoyed, staging and just getting to connect with the customer. But when it came down to what actually makes it stay open, the doors stay open, it was just so daunting and exhausting.
Yeah. Well, I thought it would be perfect because, I went to college for graphic design and I loved it. But I kind of knew after doing some logo design for a while that I don't think that this isn't it for me. I just
Mm-hmm.
know. And then I also love photography and I love decorating and all of those things I got to apply. So I did all my own design. I did all my own photography. It's like it was a great creative outlet, but
Mm-hmm.
at a price that I just wasn't willing to pay anymore. So
Yeah.
I can do all those things at home too. And that's kind of where sometimes I wish I would just put it all into like my blog and let go of that dream I once had. But creatively, it's so hard to do that.
It is very hard. Yeah.
Because I still feel inspired when I walk in that little door. I just think, oh, it's so cute here.
Yeah. Or when you go in other stores and you're just like, oh, this is how I would do things. Or I really liked that little vignette that they set up. Or you kind of get that itch and you want to scratch it so bad. And,
Yeah.
and it's just like, remember, like you got to bring yourself back down and be like, nope.
Yeah. Or if I see really good branding, it's like, oh,
Yes.
I want to do that. I want to have a little line in my store and yeah, I think what I need to do is just find a different way to apply it to my life or just appreciate it when I see it.
Yeah.
So the goal is to just keep slowing down and give more to my kids. Right now I'm at home with them and I love it. I just wouldn't trade that for anything. I mean, so what I've been trying to do is just figure out what is the best way to do that and still have this. And so that's the juggle. That's the current juggle I'm going through right now.
Yeah, I think I totally get what you're talking, like where you're coming from. Even though I didn't have a shop, it's still like I'm having the same pains like with my own business, like, because when your family grows and your kids get older, somehow you think it's going to get easier, but it doesn't.
No.
You're like, oh, they'll get older and it'll get easier, but it doesn't. It's like you just get more stuff in your brain and more things to think about and more emotions that you're having to help them handle. And, it's like it gets to be a lot for your brain. And so that's where I've had to just come and be realistic with myself and just be like, you don't have to quit everything, but you have to like be real with yourself and just be reasonable about what you can handle and what you can't, right? And the other thing I think it's important, I mean, your kids will get to a point where they don't need you as much eventually. Everyone's kids do, right?
Yeah.
And there may come a time in your life where you get to fulfill all of those like dreams that you have. It just might not be right this very second. And that's what I have to tell myself. It's like,
yeah, absolutely.
If you can't do it right now while you have a 3-year-old, like, it'll be okay because you won't be 3 forever. But at the same time, you don't want to miss these years, like when they are little, right? So,
yeah.
But it's all hard.
Yeah. And I have a 7-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 15-year-old, and he's about to turn 16. So I have a little bit of each world right now. And I kind of feel the same way about 15. I just think I only have a few more years with him. So, with Della, it was always oh, it'll get easier when she's older. Not that you're wishing away time, but now she's older, and I saw how fast it went with Jack. And I'm in this weird limbo of, I still have like this little 7-year-old, but I also have one that
Mhm.
he feels like an adult right now. He's taller than me. He drives. He's more responsible than me. And yeah, I just see these years as like so precious, and they're fleeting, and they go by so fast. And every little, 4th of July, I just think, is he going to want to spend time with us next year? Is this it?
Mhm.
Yeah. And so I'm really, that's really why I'm so glad that I ended up deciding to stay home and kind of let go of what I was clinging to over at that schoolhouse. I mean, because I can always turn back.
Yeah.
There is always time. But right now it feels like it's slipping away. Like my time with my kids,
Yeah. You kind of grieve
so,
that time a little bit. Like the time
yeah.
that you could have been, because I know that's kind of how I felt. Um, but yeah, it just goes so fast, and I think you you don't realize it until you finally do slow down and you get your priorities in check, and then you're like, "Oh my gosh, like why didn't I do this sooner?" Like
I know. I think
that's
we've
that's
actually
that
had
stuff
that
will be there. We
conversation,
have. Yes.
and
It's like,
that
"Oh,
was, it did help so much to talk to you, because I think we felt it around the same time. I think that's when I was struggling with it. Like, do I really close the door? Do I really close my brick and mortar? And I think you just had closed, or you were announced it. And yeah, I felt like we had a really good conversation after that. And it helped me make that move. And
well, like you said, retail, it's so fast paced. And so it's like a rat race in your mind for sure all of the
mhm,
time. So you don't have the opportunity to slow down. Even when you are at home, you're constantly thinking about the to do list at the shop and all the things that you have to get done and the bills you have to pay and what you have to order and all of the little tasks that need completed because it's all on your shoulders. And so it's like there's no time to really think about anything else, of course, the needs of your kids and husband, but it's like trying to fit all of that in is almost
well,
impossible.
and when you're doing, like, creatively, it's such a drain too. It was
Yes. Yeah.
like
It's like
constantly
fatigue.
thinking about, okay, I have to start thinking about fall. I'm not ready to think about fall. It's spring, but what am I going to do?
Yeah.
And I couldn't sleep. I could
Yeah.
not sleep. Um, I think the stress, like, I'm still recovering from it. I really believe it.
Same.
Physically, it took a toll that it's probably going to take a long time to recover
Hmm.
from.
Yeah.
But
My nervous system is still just shot. I mean, I didn't realize how stressed I was and how much it affected not just me, but my personal relationships and everything. I just was in survival mode. And I feel like I finally starting to creep out of that. But, even with my little tiny building I put on our ranch to work out of and put my inventory in and stuff, it's still like I feel like I'm just still recovering
yeah,
from like
you have a little
the last
adrenal
10
fatigue.
years. Yes. But yeah, it's
All of
like,
us.
man, yes.
Yeah.
It's like it's really hard for people to relate or understand unless you are creative, I think,
Yeah.
and you've been just trying to make it for that long. So,
Yeah. Well, it's hard to continue with creativity when you do feel drained. It's like you just can't work. I don't know. I had a really hard time coming up with ideas after a while, because I was just so exhausted mentally. I just kind of let things slide that I wouldn't normally let slide. And
Yeah.
well, I'll just put this here because I'm just tired, just I went in as a perfectionist, and I think that killed me.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
Yep.
Killed me.
Oh my gosh. Seriously, it is. I've 100%, like, I'm in the thick of burnout. And so it's like, I used to be like, I would be just like doing my daily things, and then I would just have like ideas right and left, like popping into my brain all the time. Like I would get, like I'd be talking to a new client or whatever, and I'd be like, oh, and then I could do this and this and this. And like, oh, that's so cool. Like I have all these ideas as soon as you're like telling me. And now it's like, it's almost like, I don't know if it's the exhaustion or the stress, but it is seriously like it blocks that part of my brain, like from functioning.
it's probably
And
both.
it's like I, like sometimes, and I've gotten a little bit better, but there was a time last year where I was just, I got to this point where the thought of sitting down to work on something that was like a big project, it was so overwhelming to me. Like I just could not even, like, I just wanted to cry. Like it just was like so heavy. And it is just, it's hard. It's hard, like, for people to understand unless you've been there.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you two get this, but I almost get like a creative hangover.
Mhm.
I can almost exhaust myself with my own ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if I go into a craft store, I know I'm going to have a headache after, because I have so many things running through my mind. Like, oh, I could do this with that. And I don't know. Once you hit that fatigue, it is really hard to even open that creativity again. It's like,
Mhm.
I don't know. I would sometimes just tear all my displays down and see the work ahead of me, and it would just completely cut off the creativity.
Yep.
It was like I felt so overwhelmed. I couldn't even see into one little vignette, or I just had a hard time like breaking it down into little pieces and then working
Mhm.
from there. Yeah, I don't know, that it's a tough, working with your creativity is tough, because you have to always be on and you have to feel inspired all the time. And sometimes you just don't have the energy to do that.
I think that's why social media drains all three of us, because it's like you either have to be on it, which can't really do,
Yeah,
or not at all, because it's just like it's almost overstimulating.
it
It
is. And then I feel like when I'm on social media, I feel inspiration, but then it's like there's so much rolling in, and then I realize, no, I'm like getting I'm not even within my own vision anymore. It's being muddied by everyone else's ideas, and
Mhm.
so it's a confusing space to be in.
It is very. Yes.
Yeah.
I like to just sometimes post and run.
That's
I don't.
that's like all you can even do anymore. I swear. It's yeah.
Yeah, if you
And
think too
even just
hard,
like
sometimes it's hard.
posting, sometimes I'm just like, I don't even know what to post. Like, because you get to where you're overthinking everything, because you're like, well, I can't post this because it's not going to do well in the algorithm, or like it doesn't match my feed, or, and it's like, but they don't care about your feed anymore, so it doesn't really matter. But then, is it a reel? Is it a post? Is it a carousel? Like, it's just like all these things rolling in my brain, and I'm just like, I'm just not going to. I'm not. I
It's
can't
too
do it
much
anymore.
structure for a creative mind. I don't do well with that. I don't like rules, because it just takes the wind right out of my sail. I
Yeah,
cannot.
I don't like being put in a box. I don't like that at all. It's suffocating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna kind of shift gears a little bit, and you mentioned your husband Nick. So why don't you tell us a little bit about him, like what he does, and how you make, because you mentioned he's a hunter. So how do you make it work being a hunter's wife, a homeschooling mama, and we've kind of talked about creativity. You can touch on that a little bit if you want, but how do you kind of fit it all in, and how does your family kind of work?
Well, he co-hosts a show on the Outdoor Channel. So it's called Bone Collector. And yeah, he's on the road quite a bit. If they're not hunting, they're working other events. And then he's picked up, some other companies along the way. So he'll go do events for, right now he's working for Jack Links. So they do a lot of events, just like archery events. And so I am actually home quite a bit with just the kids. He's on the road a lot. And I would say I'm still figuring out the balance, still figuring out how to juggle it all. Actually, homeschooling the kids has kind of saved me because that's just another schedule I don't have to worry about. I mean, because we're on our own most of the time, which also made the store hard to run. And he has, seasonally, sometimes he's home. Sometimes he can be home for weeks at a time. But then when he's gone, he is gone. It's one trip after another. And we've really just kind of learned, I think that's kind of we work well that way. But I had to get pretty independent. So I have Jack, so that helps. He's grown so much. He's like a little man. He takes out the trash. He makes coffee for me. He does all the lawn. The kids take care of the animals when they're home. It's not an easy lifestyle. I'll say that. I mean, he's pretty busy. So yeah, it's been a challenge to balance it all. But I think over the last 4 years or so, I've gotten more comfortable. We had a little bit of a break because COVID did change his job a little bit. They lost all of those appearances. He was at stores all the time. And for a couple of years there, they couldn't do that anymore. And I found it was almost more challenging to have him home all the time. Because we get our routine down and it works. So
it kind of reminds me, because like Kenzie's a firefighter wife and I was a firefighter wife for a couple of years. So it kind of reminds me of that, it's like kind of just get used to like a certain routine when they're home and a certain routine when they're not.
Yeah, it's usually a non-routine when he's home. There's no routine. Yeah. I mean, we obviously love to have him home but then like when he goes out of town, I have my one day that I just get everything back in order. And then the routine picks up from there. And yeah, it was hard for me to get used to him being gone all the time. But like I said, I've adjusted and maybe a little bit too well because sometimes it's hard when he comes home and I'm like, oh, I just got everything running just so smooth. But that's just part of his job and it just changes. It's constantly changing. And I think that's probably the hardest part is I just really never know when he's going to get another call. It's also his passion. It's not just his job. So if he gets a call to go on a hunt that he wants to go on, and it has nothing to do with the TV show or any of his partnerships or sponsors, he's probably going to do it. And I think just kind of letting go and letting him do his thing I'd say I've learned a lot from it. And I'm kind of like proud of the routine that the kids and I have. Like we're pretty good at taking care of ourselves when he's gone. We've gotten through some blizzards, through some major storms. And usually if there's like a big problem with the animals or someone gets really sick, it's always when he's gone. And I've gotten through all of it. It's just like the way it happens. I've learned a lot of lessons. So
that's awesome. You just kind of have to learn how to adapt.
Yeah. Yeah. It keeps it interesting. I'll say that. Like Yeah, he's on the road quite a bit. And it used to be just hunting season. And then, his hunting seasons kind of grew. And now now he's already now he's starting in August, early August.
Yeah.
And then after hunting season, then it's show season. So they're going to all the trade shows. And I used to go. I used to actually enjoy going, and I loved traveling. But I do love being home now more than I love traveling. And
Mhm.
I don't know, I just feel so good at home and with our routine that I'm just okay with him like going and doing his thing and coming home. And I don't feel like I'm missing out anymore, where I used to kind
Yeah.
of feel like I wanted to go to those things. I wanted to go to the shows with him, and we've made it work. I know a lot of wives in this industry kind of struggle with it. So
Yeah.
I have them to turn to, and that's helped too. So it's just a very demanding job that he has.
Yeah.
So what made you guys choose to homeschool your kids, and kind of like how do you work that?
So actually it just kind of happened for us because they were at a little school. It was like a little nature immersion school is what they called it. And COVID happened, and all the online learning it was such a mess. The teachers were struggling, the kids were struggling, and it just didn't seem to get better. And I felt like they missed so much that I just said, okay, instead of gambling on the next year, and we just don't know what it's going to look like, let's just take it home. And then I didn't like the computers. They were on computers. They didn't remember passwords. I didn't know how to log them into their classes. It was too much for me to juggle and keep up with. So I just said, I want you to go back to books. And it was a blessing that Nick agreed, and Jack and June's dad was on board with it. And I don't know, it just kind of happened to us. But I'm so glad it did, because I've learned so much, and now it's hard to imagine sending them away for the day. I see how well they do on their own. And I always struggled with school as a kid. I was doodling on everything. I couldn't focus on the things I was bored with. So I see the way that the girls get to learn out of their books. And I just think if I could have done that, I probably would have excelled. And I see June learns a lot like I learned. She's very visual. And it's been a really fun. Every year I'm learning something different. We're changing what we're doing. It's never going to be the same year to year. But I'm glad it happened. I'm really glad.
So what are some of your big dreams or goals in life?
I would say it's almost like backwards from what most people want. I just want to keep slowing down. I just want to live slower and slower. And I'm kind of over traveling. I just want to be home. I feel like I guess just being at home with my kids, that's my dream. I'm living it right now. And so I'm just kind of holding on to that while I have it. But yeah, just finding that balance where we just feel like we're just not surviving day to day, and trying to race the clock. And I just feel like sometimes if I let it happen, I just get in bed at the end of the day, and it's just like, I'm already thinking about the to-do list for tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I feel like time just slips away with your kids. It's just like, gosh, look how fast that week went. We were so busy.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't want to be busy anymore. That's my dream, is to just not feel that rush and just to find a way to just overcome it, just beat it. I just want to feel like those slow moments more and more. So that's kind of my daily goal. I've been trying to do that, and that's just part of like recovering too from all the stress of running a shop and trying to juggle everything. It was just too hard. So yeah, it took like a physical toll, and now I just really appreciate like slow time.
Yeah.
And I mean, if it weren't for all that stress, I probably wouldn't see it yet. So
yeah, I mean, God turns all things, that he can bring good out of all things, hard things, difficult things. So there are definitely blessings that come out of hardship for sure.
Yeah.
Well, kind of closing out this conversation, I just, again, thank you so much for being willing to like jump on and talk with us, especially as someone who has been in our field for so long and kind of at the same change and mindset that we're kind of going into also as a homemaker. So what is the most fulfilling thing that has happened within your home? And it could be, it can be recent or it can be a couple years ago, but how would you define success like within your home?
Oh, it's definitely my kids. It's definitely like seeing what they have, just seeing their growth over the last few years of us just really being together all the time and watching them grow and learn. And, like I said, Jack, he feels like he's an adult already. Like he's already talking about his truck he wants to get, and he's got a job. He actually has 2 jobs sometimes. He works for a farmer part-time. And I just have a lot of those moments where I'm just watching my kids and I think, I cannot believe I created them. That I can't believe that they're mine, and those, I would say that is, and then those slow moments too, where you just, we're out on the porch and we're enjoying an evening and you just have like that moment where you want to hit pause and just soak it all in like that. I would say that's kind of that's the most fulfilling thing. That's kind of what my goal has shifted to. All those big things I thought I wanted to be and create, and it's kind of right here. And so I would say for sure my kids.
Well, that's a great way to close this because I would have to agree. Like, oh, that's so good. Like, I love how God refines us through seasons, and shows us like the things that we really thought we wanted, like we already had. So that's wonderful. Well, but we're going to move into some rapid fire questions, and we ask just 10 short questions at the end of every episode, just something fun and lighthearted. But before we get to that, would you mind letting our listeners know where they can find you? And we'll be sure to put this in the show notes as well.
I would say I post mostly on Instagram, just Mallory Mundt on Instagram. And then I do have a website. It's I've got some things I'm planning there, and it's hayseedhome.com. And it seems like that'll be a little bit easier to post. I kind of paused for a while on posting my decorating and cooking, and I'm still doing all those things. I'm still photographing all those things. I just don't ever share them. And that's probably, I'd say between Instagram and that website, hayseedhome.com. That's where I'll be.
Okay, great. All right, we'll go into rapid fire. So question 1 is, what are you reading right now?
Well, I've been listening to your podcast, and that is, you guys are the first podcast I've actually listened to. I always have music playing. I never think to like switch gears. So I started listening to you guys a couple weeks ago. And I can't believe I've waited this long. I've gotten so much done. And then at night, I've had a few books stacked next to my bed, and I really just, because of the crazy times, I just open up the Bible app every night, and that's what I've been reading every night. So I just find something. I feel like it just kind of calms my nerves. It relaxes me. I just sleep better. And so I've been doing that for about a year. So whenever I do have time to read, I just think, if I'm going to spend time, I'm going to just open up the Bible. So
Yeah.
I think that's the best thing you can be reading, especially during these times.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I'm reading current events just by opening up the Bible. So I don't.
Yeah, geez, right?
Mhm.
Oh. All right. Sagebrush or blue stem?
Blue stem? I don't know. That's tough. I can't say. It just depends on what I'm decorating.
Right? What style are you going for?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, what is your favorite part of being a homesteader?
The schedule. Just not having one.
Yeah.
I mean, just like hoping it rains so I don't have to water my garden, you know?
Yes. Amen. Yes.
So,
I feel like I need to time it one day, how long it takes me to water. Like, such a good amount of time
yeah, I just
is
don't even
spent.
want to know. I like that I don't even really have to look at a clock, honestly. It's just,
Yeah.
I can tell what time we need to go to bed just by where the sun's at, when the animals need to be fed. Like that's the best part, really. It's just, I don't even know what day it is half the time. That's my favorite.
That's awesome.
All right. What's one thing you have on your bucket list?
Right now, I just talked about how I wanted to be at home all the time, but I do really want to go to Norway and Ireland because I have relatives in both places. And I feel like I want to go over there and feel inspired, bring some of that into my home. But that's bucket list. That's not on my to-do. That's probably far out when I'm ready to travel again.
Right. Yeah, like I went to Europe when I was in junior high, and I tell my husband, like, I'm going to take you again. We might be like 60 when it happens, but we're going to go.
Yeah, that would be fun. I think the hard thing is Nick has already seen the whole world. So I feel like I have to go with girlfriends. It's going to be friends or family or I don't know. But yeah, but I also love being home. So like I said, it's just bucket list. Anywhere in Europe, really. I'd love to see anywhere in Europe. So I've never been.
What is your favorite steak cut, and how do you like it cooked?
Maybe I'm boring, but just like a ribeye and butter and salt and medium, maybe medium.
Yeah.
Yep.
It depends on who's cooking it. If I'm cooking it, I don't trust myself. If Nick's cooking it or I'm at a restaurant, I'm like, you just make it as pink as you want. I don't trust myself. So
that's okay. That's the best.
Yeah. I've been doing a lot of like carnivore lately and trying to do the hardcore where it's just like beef, salt, water. And I have to say, I just never get sick of ribeye. Like I love it.
It's hard to get sick of beef in general. I feel like out of all the meats, like I get sick of everything, but not beef. Like I crave it.
Well, and I didn't even know what cut I liked. Nick told me what cut I liked. So
All right. What is your favorite wildflower?
Oh, probably ditch daisies. I call them ditch daisies. I don't know what they're just wild daisies, but that's like one of my favorite times of year. So whenever they pop up, I mean, we're out there. That's kind of when I get outside the most. That's when it's like the kickoff to summer, and it's boring. I don't know why I like them so much. I wouldn't like pick them at a flower shop, but
They're
they're for
whimsy.
yeah. And we just don't. Maybe we just don't have a ton of wildflowers around here, but we have like special vases just for our ditch daisies.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, you've kind of already answered this, but log cabin or old farmhouse?
I want a mix of both. That's
Yeah,
like,
I know.
that's
Me
kind
too.
of, if we build, that's kind of what I want to do. But I would say if I had to choose, probably old farmhouse.
Yeah.
Favorite recipe or meal to make?
Oh, I love making apple pie. I have like a
Mm.
secret recipe that I'm taking to my headstone. Like I told my kids, you'll have to come see me. But I would say apple pie. I love really desserts, just baking. I like the art of it. I don't know. Apple pie or Christmas, like sugar cookies. That's kind of my thing. I love, and I never share them actually. I don't think I've even photographed them and posted them, but that's just tradition. I love, and I actually carry it over into different seasons. So we have cookie cutters for every holiday, every season. And that's another recipe that I will never share. I told it's going to be in a safe and they can have it. I just want my kids to need me, you know?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Have you ever had an animal that had a big impact on your life or was memorable?
Yeah, my pony Daisy, I got her when we first moved to our farm when I was going into third grade, and she was this little buckskin buffalo looking thing. I mean, she had the longest coat, and thank God for that because that's what I held on to. I mean, she was she was a naughty little pony, and I used to come in crying all the time. Say my pony is so stupid. And my stepdad always said, no, you don't like her because she's smart. That's the problem with her. And I had her, I forget when we put her down, but I've had Jack and June both got to ride her before she passed. So, that pony though, she taught me everything about riding, everything I needed to know. And eventually, like as I got into hunter jumper stuff in high school, if my horse refused to jump, I had the tools because of that pony. Like I never once came off on a jump because I survived that pony. And yeah, I still miss her. And that I've had her, she was probably in her 30s when she died. But for sure, that's the horse. I wish I could visit her somehow. So
It's your heart horse.
yeah, she's it. Naughty. She was so naughty, but I miss her so much.
That's cute. All right. Share one random fact about you.
Oh, gosh, I don't know if there's anything exciting. I don't know. That's a tough one. I think I've just, when I want to learn something, I go on YouTube and I teach myself like new skills all the time. So if I decide like one day, oh, I want to learn how to make a doily, I'm making a doily, and I will sit and I'll like rewind the same YouTube video 100 times and get through that doily. And I mean, that's kind of a boring one. I've made so many things that way that I'm just constantly wanting to learn new skills. And, Della came to me and she wanted a new nightgown. And I was like, I have no idea I don't even know where to begin. And somehow she has a new nightgown that I made her, and I don't remember how I did it. YouTube. So
YouTube is like a lifesaver, man.
Yeah. So I think like, I would say the reason I bring that up is because people are always shocked when I come up with something and I post it. It's like, oh, you know how to do that too. No, I don't actually. I'm shocked
I
too.
learned it.
Yeah.
I
I'm
learned
shocked
it.
that I did that too. Yeah. So yeah, I'm just constantly like looking to find, I always want to learn old skills, like the lost skills that I just want to be able to teach my kids. And so I got to learn myself.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I love it.
And it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah.
I have people that are, they act the same way towards me sometimes. So I'll be like, oh yeah, like I can do this or whatever. And then I do that. Like, I was like, how do you know how to do so many things? Or how do you do so many things? I'm like, ADHD? I don't know.
That's it.
Like, I just like want to try a bunch of stuff. And then if I don't know how to do it, I just like figure it out. I don't know.
Yeah. Our priorities are just different. Like, yeah, I'm not fun on a Saturday night. I'm probably sitting at my dining room table trying to figure something out. Like, how do I do this stitch? And I'm, that's just, yeah. Weird fact. I'm like a grandma. I always have been.
All right. Well, I think that we've had a great podcast. I think that was a great episode. Probably one of my favorite conversations that we've had. So thanks so much for being on.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Like I told you guys, my 15-year-old said, Mom, what podcast are you going to be on? And that is going to be such a boring episode.
No, it was not boring at all. And I just think that you fit perfectly. Perfect fit for our podcast. So we love talking to you today.
Well, it's been really fun talking to you too. And we have so much in common. I just wish we would have talked sooner. I feel like I've known you guys for years, but
I know. It's so crazy. It's
from the beginning, really. And yeah, it's crazy that this is what brought us together. Your podcast. It's been really fun.
The one positive about technology and social media, I will give it that.
Yeah. No, there are positives. There are.
Not many, but
it is great though, because, one of the things that we try to do with this podcast is to, help homemakers just realize that the struggles or the things that they're going through, like, we're all going through them and they're not alone.
Yeah.
And sometimes, at least, especially where I'm at, like, there are very few women who live the same kind of lifestyle, have the same priorities, and a lot of the same interests. So that is one good thing about Instagram, is it's connected me with Kenzie and all of our guests that we've had on. Like, it's so great to be able to get to talk to people who actually get it.
Yeah.
Well, and I like getting to sit, even though we can't be in person, I like getting to sit down and having an actual conversation. I don't like small talk. I like talking about these types of things. And one thing that is frustrating about social media and is the perception, of whatever you post, that's how your life is all the time. Even those people who are close to you assume, that whatever you're sharing on social media is, that little 5 minutes or 5-second tidbit that you get that the world sees, that's how your life is. And that's only just a small snippet of your day. And so I think people need to hear these stories and need to feel like, oh my gosh, we're relatable. Like we go through the same struggles, and that's why it's important that we tell our stories and we have actual conversations with people again instead of just, comments on posts or
Yeah, your house is so perfect. Your house is so perfect. But it's like,
yeah.
no, it's not. I just like photography. I like pretty photography. I like pretty things. That's what I'm going to share. So,
Yeah. Well, and also that's okay. Like that's your creative outlet, and that's also been a struggle for me is like, well, you put off this persona, that everything is just perfect. It's like, no, I just like to post the beautiful things, and
yeah.
my private life's my private life. So,
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with posting stuff that's pretty.
No, I like Instagram for inspiration. And when all this, like, people, the trend of showing the real things going on behind the scenes, that's not what I'm there for, but I'm a visual person. So
Exactly.
Well, and I'm not there to follow other people's drama either. I'm going to be following accounts that inspire me.
Exactly.
And I like looking at other people's pretty things. I don't find jealousy over that. I'm like, wow, that's incredible. So
inspiration.
those are the accounts that I'm going to be drawn to. I give zero cares about seeing the real and raw of other people. Like I have enough stress. I don't need your stress too.
Exactly.
Yeah. I know. I always just think I have enough real life, like in my life.
Seriously.
My life is real life. If people knew, it's not all pretty doilies around here.
Yeah.
Well,
I think it's a maturity thing too. Social media has just made a lot of people immature in that way.
Yeah.
Not being able to differentiate the two.
Yes. Yep.
But we really appreciate you again coming on. Like this was such a good conversation, and I wish we could have many, many more. So
I do too. We'll have to keep in touch, and
I think we'll have you on again. I feel like there's a lot of different topics we could really go into some detail about. So
I think you're right. we should probably have a side conversation on that first.
Maybe special Patreon only episode.
like November 6th or 7th or something that week.
Yeah. Hey, I'm here. You know where to find me. I'm in my kitchen on my porch. So.
All right, Mallory. Well, thank you so much again. And we hope you have a great evening.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.